Astana and Yerevan are long-standing partners, committed to strengthening their strategic cooperation. What lies at the heart of this partnership? What values do the peoples of our countries share? And what is the main priority in our bilateral relations? We will discuss all this today with the ambassador of Armenia to Kazakhstan, Armen Ghevondyan. I'm Aynur Mangali, and this is Life of a Diplomat.
Our relations are developing into a strategic partnership.
In your opinion, are we already seeing an increase in cooperation?
This strategic partnership must be reflected in practice across all areas. You should always understand the difference between what is necessary and what is sufficient.
Hello, dear ambassador.
Hello, welcome to the Embassy of Armenia.
Thank you. Welcome to the program Life of a Diplomat.
Please follow me.
Dear Ambassador, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. I would like to begin our conversation by discussing the current state of relations between Armenia and Kazakhstan. Our two countries have maintained friendly and constructive relations for more than 3 decades. Since gaining independence, how would you assess the current state of these relations? And what would you particularly highlight?
I would say that over the past several years, we have seen a steady and consistent upward trajectory in the development and strengthening of our bilateral relations. Two important official reciprocal visits that took place in 2024 and 2025, the official visit of the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, to Armenia in 2024, followed by the official visit of the Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, to the Republic of Kazakhstan in November 2025. And I would not hesitate to say that they have been historic and breakthrough visits in many respects. This thought has been shared not only by Armenia and Kazakhstan, but also by the international community. These two visits allowed us not only to reassess and take a fresh look at the development of our bilateral relations, but also to explore the opportunities that are available to us today from a new perspective. It is no coincidence that substantial packages of bilateral agreements and documents were adopted as a result of these visits. But above all, I would highlight the joint statement adopted in 2025, in which Yerevan and Astana declared that, from that point forward, our relations would develop as a strategic partnership.
In your opinion, are we already seeing an increase in cooperation?
Let's look at the raw numbers and separate fact from opinion.
Of course.
If we look at the figures, the growth in our bilateral trade has been quite impressive. In 2021, our trade turnover stood around 27 million. By 2022, it had grown significantly, reaching approximately 46 million, and by 2023-2024, it had reached around 100 million. So we are seeing a very substantial increase, and this is happening at a time when the global economy and international trade are undergoing constant change. Many of the traditional supply chains and established trade routes are being reconsidered. In the 21st century, they do not always meet our needs in terms of delivery times, efficiency or costs. This is why both Armenia and Kazakhstan are looking at ways to diversify supply routes and find new opportunities for cooperation. At the same time, we are discovering areas that were not previously at the center of our bilateral relations. One of these is the transit and logistics sector, particularly given the major transformation that is taking place in Kazakhstan. Today, Kazakhstan is connected to the world through 13 international transport and logistics routes, linking east and west and north and south. Over the past 15 years, Kazakhstan has invested around 35 billion in developing these transport and logistics infrastructure. For us, this is extremely important because it creates new opportunities to strengthen connectivity between Armenia and Kazakhstan. It also opens the door to new trade routes and allows to look at how goods can move more efficiently through our two countries. For Armenia, this is particularly important when it comes to reaching Southeast Asia, as well as Central Asia itself through Kazakhstan. For Kazakhstan, meanwhile, the Armenian government's Crossroads of Peace initiative is of particular interest. This was also emphasized at the highest level. The concept is based on Armenia's readiness to unblock all regional communications. And when I say all, I mean all. Roads, railways, electricity transmission lines, internet infrastructure, gas pipelines and oil pipelines. We are ready to support the unblocking of all communications involving Armenia and the South Caucasus, with one fundamental understanding. All of these connections must be developed with full respect for the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and jurisdiction of the countries through whose territories they pass. This is why Kazakh logistics and transport companies are now looking closely at this opportunity. For well-known reasons, some of these routes have not been operational for 30 to 35 years. Today, however, we have the chance to rethink them and create entirely new supply chains. For example, moving goods from Europe through Armenia and Kazakhstan to China, or in the opposite direction. And I think this is where we see a very important opportunity. The potential synergy between Yerevan and Astana in transport and logistics could create something much bigger than simply a bilateral project. It could become part of a broader regional connectivity network, linking different markets and creating new trade routes between Europe and Asia.
Speaking about cooperation in the cultural and humanitarian spheres, as well as in education, how would you assess the current level of cooperation between our countries? What do you see as the prospects for further developing educational and academic ties between Armenia and Kazakhstan, especially given the significant scientific potential that both countries possess?
The scientific potential is indeed enormous, as you mentioned, and there are historical foundations for this cooperation. For example, the Institute of Astrophysics in Almaty. As the institute's leadership told me, one of the people who played an important role in its establishment was Viktor Ambartsuman, who also founded the Burakan Observatory in Armenia.
This is interesting.
Nevertheless, we see significant potential for cooperation today. Some of the work that has already been carried out has now been formalized in the form of relevant agreements at the level of the respective ministries, including agreements signed by Minister Janna Andreasyan and Minister Sayasat Nurbek. In this regard, I would particularly highlight the fact that we are carefully studying Kazakhstan's experience, including the experience provided by the Bolashak program. We are also very interested in Kazakhstan's efforts to attract branches of some of the world's top universities. If I'm not mistaken, as many as 12 by 2029. We are particularly interested in understanding how this is being done, and what kind of legal, regulatory and financial incentives are being offered to attract these institutions. I see an opportunity here not only to observe and learn from Kazakhstan's experience, but also to adapt and implement some of these practices in Armenia. Armenia is currently working on a project called the Academic City. Our goal is not simply to create physical location, but to build an entirely new ecosystem. but to build an entirely new ecosystem that brings together scientific and academic potential, teaching expertise, and modern campus system. We want future specialists to have the opportunity to develop their professional and academic skills within an environment that provides the best possible conditions for learning and research, while helping them build a strong foundation in their chosen fields.
Our countries cooperate within a number of regional and international organizations. In your opinion, how does this cooperation contribute to the development of our bilateral relations?
I consider the cooperation on multilateral platforms to be of great importance. I believe that when you have strong bilateral relations, engagement through various multilateral platforms can further enrich and broaden the scope of that bilateral relationship and cooperation. In other words, alongside our bilateral ties, we can also work together within a broader framework based on commonly agreed rules and principles. Whether in the areas of the economy, culture, or other fields, these can make a meaningful contribution to advancing our shared interests and strengthening our cooperation. I see these two dimensions, bilateral and multilateral, as mutually complementary.
What role can Kazakhstan play specifically in strengthening Armenia's relations with the Central Asian region?
First of all, I would say that Central Asia today, like many other regions of the world, is undergoing a period of very dynamic development. These changes are creating a growing need to take a fresh look at the opportunities the region has to offer. The transformations that have taken place across the countries of the region, and particularly in Kazakhstan, have changed the way we look at Central Asia. It is a dynamically developing region, and its potential today is very different from the way it was perceived 20 or 25 years ago. This applies to many areas. From the economy and the development of natural resources to transport and logistics. So I believe the region will continue to develop rapidly and will play an increasingly important role in the years ahead.
What are your key priorities specifically for your work in Kazakhstan?
When we talk about our key priorities, I think we first have to turn to what we have established through our strategic partnership. This strategic partnership needs to be reflected across all areas of our relations. That means maintaining regular political contacts and intensifying our dialogue. It means expanding our economic cooperation and, of course, making travel and people-to-people contacts between our countries more liberal, accessible, and convenient. This may seem like a small detail, but I believe it is very important. Since April of this year, we have had direct flights connecting our cities, Yerevan with Aktau, Astana and Almaty. These flights have proven to be very popular, and tickets are not always easy to find. This fact indicates that people in our countries are discovering each other's countries and cities in a completely new way. Of course, tourism officials will speak about the growth in tourism, but I would go a step further. I believe that Armenian citizens are traveling to Kazakhstan with a genuine sense of trust and without any hesitation, just as Kazakh citizens are flying to Armenia. To me, that speaks louder than any statistics. It shows that there is already a natural level of trust between our peoples. When you can simply buy a ticket, get on a plane, visit another country and return home with ease, that is a very important foundation for bringing our two societies even closer together.
Yes, indeed, it is very important. So you're saying that there's work being done in different directions.
This applies to both the economy and culture. We are now able to explore and rediscover many aspects of our shared history that were previously accessible only to a limited circle of people. For example, at the Institute of Ancient Manuscripts in Armenia, there are a number of preserved manuscripts written in Armenian script, but in the Kipchak language. This is a fascinating area of study. I do not know what conclusions philologists and linguists will ultimately reach, or why the Kipchaks chose to preserve part of their history of the steppe using the Armenian alphabet, but I believe this could only happen under one condition. There must already have been a certain level of trust and connection between our peoples, even back then.
Indeed, so already back then, our people were collaborating, right?
There must already have been a certain level of trust, because unfortunately, Armenian is not one of those languages that is widely spoken around the world. It is primarily spoken by Armenians, and yet the Kipchaks chose to preserve these texts using the Armenian alphabet.
This is such a fascinating fact.
Yes, and it was possible only if people trusted each other.
Since our program is called Life of a Diplomat, and we often talk about diplomats and their lives and work in Kazakhstan, I would like to ask you, what inspired you, first and foremost, to become a diplomat and choose diplomacy as your profession and your calling?
It's difficult to say exactly what inspired me. My first degree was in physics, and I studied mathematical analysis quite extensively. In the exact sciences, when you work with mathematical analysis, you always have to understand where the boundary lies between what is necessary and what is sufficient.
You have quite the scientific approach here.
It's probably very difficult to answer the question of whether diplomacy is ultimately a profession, a craft, or an art. But in any case, I believe diplomacy is a field where you constantly have to find the balance between what is necessary and what is sufficient. At the same time, just as in physics, you sometimes have to allow for phenomena that, at first glance, may not seem explainable within the framework of classical physics, yet somehow they work in practice. And in that sense, I am very pleased that my career has allowed me to combine the precision of the exact sciences with more than 30 years of diplomatic experience and training in this field.
What does successful diplomacy mean to you? What makes a diplomat successful?
Well, perhaps I'm about to say something that may not be particularly fashionable, especially in 2026. I believe in the principle that success loves silence. Yes, success really does love silence. I don't think you always need to declare that something is a victory or make loud headlines about it. What matters most is knowing that you had the opportunity to contribute the processes that reached a much wider audience, opened up new opportunities for trade and economic relations, or helped increase awareness of a particular country, even if it was just by bringing one more tourist there, or increasing trade by a single dollar. These are the kinds of moments that allow us to distinguish opinions from facts. And ultimately, I believe that real success should be measured by the facts.
To conclude our conversation today, what would you like to say to Kazakhstan and to the people of Kazakhstan about the future of friendship, cooperation, and partnership between our two countries?
First of all, I would put the emphasis on the word friendship, because partnership and cooperation are only truly possible when there's friendship. And in this regard, I always believe that friendship is something we have to work on. nurture and protect. And to do that, first and foremost, we need to remain as sincere and genuine as we have been, because that sincerity is what has allowed us to reach the level of relations we have today. I would very much like as many citizens of Armenia and Kazakhstan as possible to experience this friendship for themselves through simple, everyday human connections. I would like this friendship to be more than something we see in the news or something that exists only at the highest political level. It should be supported by real people-to-people ties, and even more importantly, it should help us create new opportunities, develop new initiatives, sign new agreements, expand student exchanges, and organize more cultural days of Armenian culture in Kazakhstan and Kazakh culture in Armenia. All of this should be driven by a simple human desire to learn more about each other, to visit one another more often, and to proudly share our cultures, our traditions, and of course our cuisine. And in this regard, I am confident that our future is very bright and that everything will be very good for our two countries.
Thank you so much, dear Ambassador, for your time and information you shared with us today.